In this episode of the Horror Headquarters, if you think about it, we're putting our health and safety in the hands of strangers. Crazy enough, we were watching Halloween at the time we got the news that this had all happened. I definitely think one big issue is the treatment that we see in psych wards today and whether or not people are actually getting treatment or they're just being tortured. Hello everyone, my name is Hassan Shamu. I am the creator of the Horror Headquarters. Welcome to episode 6 of the Horror Headquarters. I hope you guys are all doing well and taking care. And if you are a returning Nightling, welcome back. If you are a new Nightling, make sure to hit that follow button and check us out on all our social media platforms. Just looking at the title, we're going to be discussing psych wards a little bit today. And I'm not sure how long this episode is going to be because this is definitely a very sensitive subject that I am currently doing a lot of research on, being that I'm trying to dive into this specific area just out of curiosity. Now, the reason I bring this up is because in October, we received a news alert that someone had escaped a psych ward and they were on the run in our area. No, it didn't say any action was necessary, it just said if you had seen the person, they gave a full description of what they look like, and they said if you see them, please report them to the police. So, and creepily enough, when we received this news alert, we were watching Halloween 2018, and the reason I bring this up is because we were watching the scene where the patients are being transported from one facility to another when this news had broken out. Then we received a text about 15 minutes later saying that this exact patient was actually struck by a car on the highway, and it made my heart drop because obviously that's horrifying that someone escaped a psych ward, first of all. Secondly, we don't know the full story. Thirdly, we don't know if they're dead or not. So we're just watching this film while this is all happening. We're like, what are the chances that we're watching this exact scene where the bus crashes and all these psych patients escape? That's when we receive a text saying that this person just got hit by a car. And it's honestly terrifying to think about that a psych patient actually saw the only way to kind of receive care was to run in the middle of the street. And what I hate about all of this is how little info we got. Not to say that it's any of our business, but they didn't disclose the psych ward in question. They didn't disclose what had happened. They didn't disclose any new information on the specific thing. Now, hopefully the family, if the person does have any family, I hope they have received some closure on this aspect, but just knowing that no further information was disclosed on the specific thing, being that it happened about a month and a half ago, just creeps me out a little bit, because what are we doing in these psych wards today? My area, we're surrounded by so many different psych wards and mental institutions. The treatment in there, all I've heard is, especially in the areas around me, that the treatment in psych wards is so catastrophic and it's so disheartening to see. And having known so many people that have been in these psych wards for their own mental health, they say that it did nothing for them, that they were left in isolation, and that they really did receive no assistance at all. Now, I'm basing this off the facts of what other people are telling me, but I personally have never heard one good story from a psych ward of someone being released and being in completely better condition. Not to say that you're supposed to be in 100% better condition, but you're supposed to be at least more stable. Now, this got me thinking, how are we treating people in psych wards today? I ended up doing some diving into some people's stories online, through news sources and through their own kind of experiences with psych wards. Now, if you know me, you know there's a bunch of other asylums in the state, including the Traverse City State Asylum, which I did an episode on, the Eloise Asylum, which is now shut down, which I've also did an episode on, and you just hear about the horror stories of these specific asylums and the experiences that these people went through while they were taken into this place, the people that were misdiagnosed, that were mistreated, and it just got me so involved and interested in the subject because I wish I could make a difference as much as possible, and I hope one day that I can be a philanthropist and kind of really bring and shed light to this specific area. Now, going back on how I said I did a deep dive into this subject, I ended up finding out that many news sources in my area did investigations into sort of psych wards in the area, finding out that people were mistreated and were held against their will in these psychiatric hospitals. And you even had one person say that they felt kidnapped. So many different patients are coming forward after an investigation into a Michigan documentary. And just hearing what this girl had to say, I'm going to keep her name private for personal reasons, but she stated that she was so mistreated that she was asking how long she's going to be held and that they would constantly be ignoring her questions, and that there was even one situation where she was called out of her room where she was sleeping and was told to get onto a stretcher, and she said she was agitated and confused, and she started asking questions like, and I quote, "What the hell is going on?" And I basically got told, you can stop asking questions and calm down, or you can get doped up and made to calm down and stop asking questions. And just hearing this pisses me off so much, because people that have mental health don't deserve to be treated like this. And now, I'm not a doctor, and I know I'm probably going to get attacked by a bunch of people that are psychiatrists or professionals, but no one deserves to be treated like this. And whether or not she's telling the truth, if anyone has the guts to come to a news source and actually come out about this kind of stuff, then there's a point where you kind of have to be like, wow, maybe this is actually happening. Because she really isn't the first one to come out about this. There has been multiple patients that have come out from this specific center saying that she was mistreated. And she's not the only one, like I said, that has been going through this kind of treatment. And before anyone asks any more questions, I just want to say that this girl that ended up speaking up, she stated, and I quote, "The moment they knew I was talking to you, suddenly I was well enough to go home." And this is what she told to the news source that is in my state. I definitely find it very suspicious that the moment they found out that she was talking to a news source to kind of get an investigation going, that they had decided to release her. There's obviously something that they're hiding, as well as so many other psych wards, and it got me to thinking about the ones around my area, because I'm always passing by them and they seem so depressing, and I definitely do feel horrific energy when I pass by them, because there's like one that's like maybe 1.5 miles away from me. It's not that I'm scared of the location, I'm scared of the energy, of the mistreatment that people are possibly going through. And again, the reason I'm not disclosing any locations is because I have never been to any of these, like interior wise, but I don't want to bring any bad energy to them if they're actually doing a good job. But just passing by these locations gives me a really bad feeling in my heart. Just being in psychiatric hospitals makes me really ache and fear for the people that are witnessing these scenarios, because there's so many times where people are sent to these psych wards when there's actually nothing wrong with them. They're completely normal, but they're like dosed up with so many different chemicals, and they're told that there's something wrong with them, when in reality they're just being human. So I think mental health is something so important, especially in today's society, and just by misdiagnosing someone and saying, oh, you have this and this and this, without doing a full diagnosis, it just makes me so upset. And that's something that the doctor that was treating this specific girl did. He would pre-sign these forms. I'm gonna actually find out what they were called, 1 second. So they're called the clinical certificates, and he did this before patients were even examined. And he says the reason he did this is, we examined them, but I signed it to be ready for the time factor. What does it have to do with anything? You can sign it after and give them a proper diagnosis, instead of pre-signing these forms, which is basically saying this person has something wrong with them before even knowing them, before even doing like a full sit down and talk with them. This just aggravates the hell out of me. Also, just need to throw in that I have taken multiple classes on psychology, on like different types of psychology, on cognitive psychology, on mental psychology, behavioral psychology. There's all these different levels to this. So obviously everyone's experience in psych wards or just with mental health is different than someone else's. So just hearing all these stories of people that have been suffering in these psych wards, people that are misdiagnosed and that feel like they're trapped in these areas, just makes me really upset, and it's something I'm really passionate about. There was even an article earlier this year from the same news source that stated that even employees were coming forward about this specific doctor's treatment, and patients are even coming out saying that they were locked up, held against their will, in a general hospital psychiatric unit, or were coerced into staying for treatment for illnesses they say they did not have. And in the beginning, like, very little people were willing to come out and talk publicly about this specific thing. But now patients, parents, and employees are coming forward to talk to them about what they say are their experiences with the psychiatric treatment, at some local hospitals and with the specific psychiatrist. And you know what? I'm gonna say his name. His name is Dr. Negi Khair. And you just wait, it gets even worse. After these investigators started asking questions in the probate courts about this specific doctor, he suddenly resigns from one of the hospitals where he was in charge, but remains working for at least two other hospitals where patients say he has all the power over them. And they continue to describe a system that uses the courts or the threat of the courts to keep patients locked up longer than necessary, and people are not allowed to have lawyers, they're not allowed to have free will in these areas. And then the investigators even discovered a crucial court form that can rob you of your freedom, that being signed long before a doctor ever examines you, and that's the sheath that I was talking about earlier. That is an extreme red flag in the fact that no other big news sources out there are discussing these, because I know it's not only happening here in Michigan, I know it's happening in every single state. And speaking of Michigan mental institutions, I actually watched a recent documentary on an investigation that was done in my state, and it kind of bleeds off of the previous patient that came out discussing that they were put into a psych ward involuntarily, that they were drugged up for absolutely no reason, and they were held against their will. The doctor's name is Dr. Khair. He's actually still employed at two of these hospitals. He ended up resigning from one of them. But even one of these patients came forward, and she has a law degree, and she says that the doctor never even saw her, that she, as stated, was held against her will, that she was transferred involuntarily, and she was hoping people would see a mistake was made. But being there with all the other patients, she realized that she had to lie in order to get out. And what I mean by this is she basically had to tell them what they wanted to hear. If you tell them that you're here by mistake, like you don't belong here, they're gonna keep you longer. Like she basically has to lie and say like, yes, I have this and this and this, I have to work on this and that. And that's the only way that she was released. And one of these parents of Bree ended up calling 911 because her daughter was held against her will, because her daughter wasn't able to make any contact to her parents. Like she literally wasn't able to call her mom and say I'm in a psych ward for a week. For a week she wasn't told this, and it was a week later that she actually called and like was hysterically crying and saying she's being jumped here at this psych ward. And that's when her mother ended up going. But surprisingly enough, her mother or one of the sheriffs wasn't able to see her because apparently they put her to sleep by injecting her with something. That is so inhumane, and that just aggravates the hell out of me, and it makes me so upset. I can't even speak properly. So she's not the only one. As I stated, there's even people that don't even want to disclose their names. They don't want to be seen on camera, and the reason being is they know they're going to get in trouble for what they're saying. Obviously, they're just trying to keep themselves in hiding, incognito. But mental health associates have even stated it's unethical what this doctor is doing by pre-signing these forms, these clinical trial forms that basically lock a patient into an institution where they can basically write whatever they want without meeting with this patient. And there's even general hospital employees that have came out against him, saying that what he's doing is unethical, and they're saying that even times where he's not even at the hospital, he's saying that he met with a patient. And it's crazy because there was even an investigation done for 22 days from this newscaster where they went and saw the doctor enter the hospital and then leave between the times of 10 and 3. And there was even some days where he would leave around 10 o'clock, yet he was stating that he saw a patient at 11:30 and then was diagnosing them with psychosis or bipolar disorder. Turns out these were the two most common diagnoses that people received, and this ended up pocketing the hospitals and him $23 million. Turns out there was 10 filed complaints against this doctor from the years 2013 to 2022. All of them stating that they were involuntarily put into this hospital, that they either never seen this doctor, seen him for about 5 minutes before he made a diagnosis, or were treated disrespectfully by him. But no one else allegedly is doing what he does, and they're stating that no other psychiatrists in Michigan do this. Like, they've even met with so many different lawyers and associates in mental health in trauma departments saying that free signing these forms is unethical, it is wrong, and it just is disrespectful and strips this person of the freedoms that they have. But honestly, I do think that this whole situation is about money. Unfortunately, the health department is all about money. Being someone that went to college for biology, went for society, seeing how expensive everything is, it was literally discussions in every single class because of how expensive everything is and the experiences that these people are having. And you can look at a hospital bill, you're probably paying $700 for one aspirin. You're paying $10,000 for a bed. You're paying like $500 for water and food. What is this? What would we come to this? How did we come to this? And even with the recent news of the United Healthcare CEO being shot and killed, and people are like sad about it. But honestly, you have to think of where we are in the world today. How much a vaccine costs, how much medicine costs, how difficult it is for people to receive healthcare today, and it's devastating. And it should be a wake-up call to people out there for them to realize that they can't spend this much money and think people are going to go along with it. Not to say that if this is happening, you should kill someone. That's exactly not what I'm saying. But you can't be surprised by it because people are being tortured. People are being like we are third world citizens, like we are not even human. I have to say, the craziest part about this entire documentary that this news station did is they ended up talking to this doctor for an hour where he denied every single thing that was against him. But surprisingly, the one thing he did accept and say that he is doing is pre-signing these forms. And something else that the investigators found out is that it's not just him that are signing the forms, it's people that are working at the hospital that aren't even psychiatrists that are filling out these forms for him, that they're literally being diagnosed with things that they've never been diagnosed for in their history, that they're not consulting doctors, that they're not consulting previous doctors, parents, family members, anything like that. They're just making diagnoses out of the top of their heads, all for the cause of money. And of course, he had to kind of toot his own horn and show his entire office and how well of a job he's doing. He's like, I'm the most conservative psychiatrist out there. I'm not doing anything wrong. This is his words. He literally stated that he isn't doing anything wrong in this situation. And it just is an eye opener. And with everything coming out about this United Healthcare CEO being shot and all these news stations releasing about lawsuits for vaccines, lawsuits for mistreatment in the medical system, just aggravates me, and it just connects right back to the psych wards and to people that escape these because they really have no other choice except to unfortunately kill themselves in these situations where they feel that's the only escape because of these mistreatments that people are experiencing, but they're too afraid to come forward because, like I said, this doctor's saying, no, the court's going to be on my side, you can't do anything. It's kind of like with college professors. If they have tenure and you try to file a report against them, whether it's for harassment, whether it's for misbehavior, they always state they're going to win and that nothing's going to happen to them because of this. And I've witnessed that. I literally had a college professor who was harassing me, who was mistreating me, who was so freaking racist. And I filed a report to the dean, to the office of the president, and nothing happened. Nothing happened. And he came up the next day at lecture and stated, nothing's going to happen to me. I have tenure. This university loves me. And it's devastating to see how low we continue to stoop in this area in healthcare, where it's all about taking care of people. It says care in it, but we're doing the absolute opposite of that. So I think doing our due diligence, actually knowing what's out there and realizing that there's so many things at play, there's so many experiences that people are going through that are too afraid to come forward. There's employees, parents, patients that are saying mistreatment is happening, but nothing is being done. And the reason I bring this up again is just to kind of give you guys a wake-up call, because as someone again that has went to school for this type of stuff, it made me realize how mistreated people are, how our voices are constantly shut down, how everything is about money. And it's not, I've always known that. I've always known that the healthcare system was all about money, because why are you charging $700 for aspirin? Makes sense to that to me. Help me understand why it costs $700 for an aspirin, why it costs $150,000 to give birth. Explain that to me. Explain that to me. Now, this is a series I'm going to continue to do. I'm going to continue to do even more research into multiple psych wards in my area. I am going to be posting the documentary that I watched for this series under the description. I'm going to put a little paste right there for you guys to check out. It discusses areas in Pontiac and Stone Creek, and then there was one more location that they discussed, but I want you guys to watch it for yourself and just see everything that's being released. And this was earlier this year. I'm hoping an update happens either later this year or we get more information on how all of this stuff is being treated in today's day. Now, if you guys did make it all the way to this part of the episode, I really appreciate your guys' support. Thank you for listening all the way through. I know this episode is a little bit shorter than my previous episodes. Again, I am going to be doing more due diligence and research on the subject in order to give you guys my view on everything happening, to educate you guys as best as possible with the experience that I have in this field, as well as the research that I'm doing. Because you guys, literally, Google is an oasis. And I don't just mean like the exterior Google. Dig deep, look into papers, look into interviews, look into these documentaries where they're exposing secrets that you guys would never hear from a regular person out there in the world. Do your research. If there's anything you guys are concerned about, obviously make sure you guys are looking at the proper resources. Now, if you guys enjoyed this episode, please make sure to hit that follow button, to share this with a friend or family that you think would really find this episode interesting, to share this to your story, to really educate people on what's going on, or even sharing the little documentary that I have in the description below. I appreciate all the love and support. Thank you guys for listening. Thank you guys for the amazing outpouring love for this podcast. There's just so much happening behind the scenes. I know I haven't uploaded an episode in such a long time, but I do have what I think is a good excuse, and that is I've been doing interviews and will be releasing my new film Visions on December 3rd. I'm so excited for you guys to watch it. I am excited to do kind of a recap and deep dive into the film that I've created. But until next time, you guys, tread very lightly and pray for forgiveness. Midnight hour is approaching.